Welcome to another edition of College Basketball Net Profit here on Pub Sports Radio, Monday, November 14th. Ian Cameron, Conor Mack, another Monday in the college basketball world, and another interesting slate of games here for this Monday night. We've got lots of course, non-conference action. The schedule, is a little bit uneven at this time of year. Some nights you got a lot of games, some not so many, but it's a decent-sized card tonight. So let's get right to it. We'll start, as we always do, with the marquee games on the slate, and we will begin with Florida Atlantic taking on Florida here. Nice little in-state battle. The Florida Gators, 12.5-point home favorites, 145 the total. I like Florida, and I like the over in this game, both bets. Gators laying the points, and also Florida Atlantic. I think Florida's a better team this year and a bet-on team with a better coach this year compared to Mike White. I love the Todd Golden hire. He did a great job with the Dons of San Francisco. Castleton, still the big inside that can give you defense, rebounding, scoring around the rim. I think their backcourt's a little bit better this year. They're definitely looking to push the pace more than they have in years past, and I think they're definitely going to have a little bit of an offensive advantage here in this matchup. Florida Atlantic, on the other hand, a 1-1 start to the season for them, but 0-1 straight up in ATS on the road, and it was an 80-67 loss in their last game against Ole Miss. To be honest, I was disappointed because I think Ole Miss is a bit of a bet against team, and Florida Atlantic struggled and lost by double figures to them on the road, and now they're facing, I think, a better Florida team. I'm laying the points with Florida. They're a team I'm going to be looking to back, especially when they step up in competition, because I just think they're much better coached as well this year compared to Mike White with Todd Golden. So I like the points, laying it with Florida, and I also like over. Like I said, this team is going to change their stripes a little bit, pushing the ball up the court in transition a bit more. Florida Atlantic certainly gave up 80 in their last game, which flew over the total against Ole Miss, and Ole Miss isn't even a team that pushes pace, more of a half-court team. So Florida and the over for me. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm off this one here. Even though I lean Florida, like you're talking about, I like the higher. You went through all that stuff with White gone and going in, but I didn't love how they played. Kennesaw State in that game, they won by 10. Both these teams, Florida last year, different team. That's why we're under, and so is Florida Atlantic. They're in the 340s, so that's why the total I couldn't mess with. But maybe you're right. Maybe this gets over. Both teams have scored a bunch. Florida should easily get in the 80s, maybe mid 80s. Maybe look at their team total. So I have to stay off the game total at 145, 144. But yeah, it was just a pass for me all the way around here.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Next up, we've got Troy, Florida State on the docket. Florida State 10-point home favorites, 143. Give me Troy in this game. I like the Trojans here getting 10 points. Florida State's not playing well right now, and this is one of those teams where, until the betting market's correct to the struggles of Florida State here early on, we're going to bet against them at every reasonable opportunity. I don't like the way they're defending, which is atypical of a Leonard Hamilton bunch. And even offensively, it disappeared for them in the second half against UCF in their last game. So, yeah, there's definite concerns that I've got for the way the Seminoles have started. Now, it's early in the season. We've seen instances over and over again. Teams start poorly and they get better as the season goes on. That could be the case here, but I'm going to need to see evidence of improvement before I'm laying 10 with Florida State. Scott Cross is a veteran head coach. He's fourth year now with Troy. They've improved every season he's been there. Darius McNeil is a really good scorer for this team. They defend at a pretty decent level when you look at it. And they've also been a good team in the underdog role in recent years. This is actually a team that's done very well in the underdog role, and especially in the road underdog role, which is where they are here in this game against Florida State. So until I see better play out of Florida State, I have no issues going against them here and grabbing the 10 with Troy tonight. What do you think here, Conor?
When I first saw this, I was like, I want to jump all over Troy, but I've kind of stepped back a little bit. They beat two just nobodies. Last year, this basketball team was just awful. They were a tough team to back, where I don't blame you taking the 10. That's where I wanted to go, especially if Phillips has a big game. He's usually their leading scorer. And Eugene, they could hang around here because there's nothing to like about Florida State. Early on. This team does not look good at all. Maybe they get going. I'm worried they play well here, But there's no way. I'm with you. It's just a lean. I ended up backing off it, but it's Troy here at the +10 or nothing.
All right, next up we've got DePaul and Minnesota. We've got the Blue Demons now, road favorites, 1.5, 134.5 the total. I don't know if this line is moving in the right direction. I kind of lean Gophers here on their home floor. I'm not necessarily. Both teams are 2-0, but DePaul's 2-0. We do have to point out both of them were at home, and both of them were against below average competition. Loyola Maryland, and they were 14-point favorites. They only won by 6, and Western Illinois, who never play any kind of good defense, and they only won by 12 to Paul in that game. So they're actually 0-2 ATS to Paul going into this game. It's a bit of a rebuilding phase for Minnesota, of course, brand new head coach. They have brought some pretty good defense. I like the way they're defending, though, early on, and it looks like this actually could be a team that's better defensively. Let's not forget that toward the end of the Richard Pitino era, this team really wasn't defending at that end of the basketball court very well at all. It looks like they've gotten back to a little bit of that, tenacious, guard your man, contest shots, show some ability to get back and transition. I think you're seeing an improved effort from the Golden Gophers and improved focus for them at the defensive end of the floor, and that might be all it takes. Look, I know DePaul, is capable of scoring the ball. They push the ball. Stubblefield is basically playing the way the coach before at DePaul also did: push pace, push tempo, trying to get out and run in transition. But Minnesota's, a team that defensively has been able to negate transition here in the early part of the season. I think matchup-wise, it's okay for Minnesota, and I certainly don't mind the price. So at +1.5 here, I do like the Gophers just a little bit here, home underdogs. Conor, what do you think here, DePaul, Minnesota?
I'm with you here a little bit. I know Battle's not going to be in. I mean, he's going to be out for a while, I believe. DePaul is pretty good. I just don't think they're very good. I don't think they're great defensively. Initially I looked at this total and I like the under, but this has come down a bit now. Can Minnesota score, enough to maybe get this over now? I'm not so sure, but at the barn, there's just no way I want DePaul. I'd go with Minnesota as well. I think they're kind of Minnesota. In the end this year, I don't think it's going to be a very good basketball team. But here at home early on, I think this is a win they should get. And I look at them just straight money line, take them +110. I think we get the win here.
All right. Next up, we got Portland and Kent State. Kent State 5.5, 6-point home favorites, 152.5 the total. I mean, there was no hotter team in the MAC down the stretch last year in college basketball than Kent State. I remember they went on that crazy point spread run. They've got a pretty solid bunch coming back this year when you look at what they've managed to accomplish. But at the same point in time, it still is a brand new season. And you look at the way the matchup is with these two teams. Portland's a very good offensive team. They can fill it up. There is no question about that. And when you look at Portland in particular going into this game, you're talking about a team a Kent State team that really struggles against three-point shooting so far early in the season. That could keep Portland in this game. Portland's a bet-on team for me all the way. I'm looking to back Portland. I like Shante Leggins, who did a great job at Eastern Washington as the head coach there. He's already got this Portland program really moving in the upward trajectory. Last year was a great finish to the year for them. They look to be even better in the West Coast Conference this year. I have a small bet on Portland here. I kept it small for one main reason, though. The travel, you're going from the West Coast, you're going to Kent here in Ohio. It's a long travel spot, and there is a key injury concern here for Portland with Chris Austin. It's a guy that plays a shit ton of minutes. He's one of their go-to scorers. There's no question about that. And when you look at what he's done for Portland the last year in particular, he was a guy that filled it up offensively for Portland. He is probably going to miss this game due to an undisclosed injury. So keep that in mind. But he's also missed the last few games as well. So keep that in mind. But although this is going to be a little bit more challenging for Portland than their first two opponents, I still lean to them here catching points in this game. Like I say, I'm looking to back this team. They were a moneymaker for me down the stretch last year. Should see some points in this game as well. The over's taken money, 149.5 up to 152.5. I agree with that as well. C-Mac, what do you think?
This is probably where they're going to miss Austin. That's what I'm bringing up. Those first two easy games at home, but Portland just not the same team kind of on the road as they are at home. But one thing, they've given up a bunch of points. You're telling me Portland State scored 90 on them. I think Kent State gets in the 80s. And hopefully Portland doesn't struggle too much offensively where they could use him tonight. I like the over here. I'm on it. As much as I kind of lean to Portland with the points, I'm going to stay off being on the road. I know Kent State should score, with Carey. Wallace is pretty good. So, yeah, I like the over. I got 151.5, but even 152.5, I think this goes over.
All right, liking the over here as well with Portland and Kent State. All right, next up here as we continue along, we've got Richmond and College of Charleston. Richmond was a 4-point road favorite, and now we've had a switch of favorites. Charleston is laying 2.5 here at home, 152 the total. I agree with the move to an extent. Now that it's 2.5, though, I'd probably pump the brakes. If you like Charleston, probably take a money line now just to be a little bit safer. But I thought it was a little dubious to put Richmond out there, 4-point road favorites. Pretty solid home court. They did have the nice win against Northern Iowa in their last game, beat VMI before that. I mean, solid Richmond team, no question. But going on the road, we have seen this team struggle. Last year they did, at least, in a lot of their games away from home. The bet that I like the most here is, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've been on Charleston over the total in each of their first 2 games. They flew over the total. You had 85-78, 163 points against Chattanooga, and then 188 points against North Carolina. Both of them flying over the total. An extremely fast-paced basketball team, this Charleston group. They don't always play great defense either. I think you're going to see more points in this one. So I agree with the move and the total. That's the best way to go, in my opinion. The total 151.5 up from 148.5, and I agree with that move. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, it still could get there because Richmond's look solid defensively, and they bring back, a bunch of guys from last year. So kind of a senior, older crowd here for the Spiders. Charleston, though, can fill up the bucket. Don't play a ton of defense, as you mentioned, up and down. So I kind of agree to the move to the over. We'll see if that Richmond defense will clamp it down and slow it down to this total. The move's been wild. I mean, I agree with it a bit, but now like 6 points, 6.5. Wow, it's crazy. I'm off in the end. Now I think 3.5, maybe you could look Richmond. When in the beginning, 2.5, 3, I'd look Charleston. So this one I'm going to watch here. Charleston been very good ATS, going back to last year, especially at home. So I can't wait to watch this one.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this one too. Next game, Oral Roberts and Houston, just because of the pace war, the clash you're going to have of styles here. Houston 20-point home favorites, 142.5 the total. Houston's going to play in the half court, slow it down, try to grind down this Oral Roberts team, and Oral Roberts going to push the basketball up the court and transition and run as much as they can. Because, look, they're probably not going to score very much against the set defense, against the half-court defense, which is as elite as it gets in the country when it comes to Houston. But, you look at this matchup, though, that's what makes Houston such a great team under Kelvin Sampson is that the teams try to speed them up. The teams that play like Oral Roberts does, they try to speed up Houston and see if it rattles them. It's not going to rattle Houston. It never does. And, in fact, they have more scoring now than they did, say, 2, 3, 4 years ago, where if you do try to speed them up, they can burn you. In transition themselves. And you look at what this team has at their disposal so far this year. They've got Sasser, of course, who's been here forever, Jarris Walker, Jawan Roberts, all 3 of them averaging double figures. They're shooting a nice percent. They haven't even shot their best from 3-point range yet. Wait till that happens, other than Sasser, who's shooting 35% from 3-point range, which isn't bad. But Walker on the inside has been terrorizing teams. I think that could be an issue for Oral Roberts, who's a little bit more perimeter-oriented. Of course, Max Asmus, he's going to do his thing, 16 points per game. Connor Vanover, 15 points per game as well, contributing in terms of the front court, giving them some scoring around the rim. It was actually a nice addition getting him from Arkansas. He's been a nice addition offensively for Oral, but we've seen this before with Houston. You try to speed them up. It doesn't work. I like usually taking points with Oral Roberts as a dog. I took them against St. Mary's. They squeaked out a point spread cover in that game. But after what I've seen from Houston, and I took Houston in both games laying points, I'm not stepping in front of Houston right now. I mean, 83-36, 81-55 against St. Joe's. They've been dominant defensively. It's a pass for me in this game because I also, this is not a Houston team I have any interest in fading. But at the same time, this is usually the point spread range and role I like Oral Roberts in. So it ends up being a game where I'm fascinated to watch it. I'm actually interested to see how this one goes, but going to end up staying out of it betting-wise. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Oral Roberts just can fill it up, but they don't stop anybody. And I think Houston could do what they want. I just how into it I was talking about Houston. I think they should cover here the first half. It's tricky. I looked, the first two games, I think they scored like 82 and 81, and the team total's 82 and a half. I think they get there with it. Um, but yeah, they should win here pretty easy. You mentioned Vanover's is good, that Arkansas transfer, for the size for him, but Oral Roberts just doesn't have it defensively. But I want to watch. I don't know. Something about this game, I'm just off. But I'd be on Houston as a free bet here, first half or that team total.
All right, we've got Louisiana Tech and Texas Tech next up here. Texas Tech 13-point home favorites here, 131 and a half being the total in this game. It's a fascinating dynamic that we have here right now in this game. Of course, Mark Adams is in his second season as head coach. He took over after Chris Beard bolted to Texas, of course. But the guy that's coaching Louisiana Tech right now, he actually was an assistant with Texas Tech before getting this job with Louisiana Tech. So interesting little dynamic here. He should know this team pretty well. It'll be interesting to see how it translates onto the court tonight. But, Louisiana Tech might have that little intangible advantage in their favor for this game tonight with Talvin Hester taking over, the new head coach after being an assistant under the guy he's coaching against tonight, Mark Adams. So it's kind of like student versus teacher here from a coaching matchup standpoint. I kind of like La Tech a little bit in this spot. I know they lost Lofton last year. It was just outstanding for them, their go-to player, without a doubt. But Louisiana Tech usually catching points has been a solid enough role for them. We really don't have anything to go on. They played a nobody team in their first game of Mississippi College, 78-61. Texas Tech, on the other hand, pretty impressive victory in their second game against Texas Southern, 78-54. They beat Northwestern State 73-49 before that. So they've been really good defensively, and that is your concern here. Is there going to be enough points here from Louisiana Tech to remain competitive? But I do lean La Tech. I lean under the total as well. We definitely should see both of these teams. And look, obviously Taylor for Louisiana Tech here, Talvin Hester rather. Talvin Hester, a disciple of Mark Adams. Slow it down, play good defense in the half court. So I understand why the total opened 135 down to 131 and a half. People seeing what I'm seeing, we probably are going to see a defensive battle here in Lubbock tonight. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I lean to the under. We'll see how much, Willis. La Tech hasn't played anybody. I'm worried about Lofton, though, losing him. He was just so big for this La Tech offense. I mean, in time of need when they couldn't score anything, he'd be so big for them, basically their whole team. Texas Tech, though, on the other hand, I think they should win here. And I'd roll with them to cover. They're just not the team ever really that I love laying points with. A little better here. This isn't, 18 or 20. It's 12 and a half, 13. So I'd lean that way with Tech. Just the better defense. Just clamp down La Tech.
Yeah. Yeah, no question about that. Definitely a team that in terms of covering margins offensively. Now, offensively, they look solid so far, but again, they really haven't been challenged yet. Texas Tech. We'll see if things change tonight here against Louisiana Tech. All right, we got Butler and Penn State coming up next year. Penn State 5.5 point home favorites in this game. The total right now sitting at 144. I'm surprised the total's been hammered up. I mean, Butler is a team that Thad Matta now is their head coach, former Ohio State head coach years ago. This is not a guy that's known for wanting to push the pace, and he usually wants to play more of a defensive-minded half-court style. Butler this season, when you look at it, their tempo numbers are a little bit higher than I thought, but nothing spectacular. 230. That's what I expect. As soon as I saw that Thad Matta had been hired as their head coach. You look at Penn State, they don't push the pace either. Granted, these are two solid offensive teams, but Butler so far defensively has been pretty good in their opening couple of games. It's puzzling to me that the total's gone up this much in this matchup here between Butler and Penn State. As far as the side goes in this game, Penn State so far this year, they've looked impressive. They beat down Winthrop 93-68. They put up big points. People seeing that offensively they've been on fire so far this year, but this is out of your mind shooting numbers right now for Penn State, for a team that, again, it's not exactly playing ultra fast. They're just shooting the ball at a ridiculous, unsustainable clip. I mean, 33 of 60 against Winthrop, 33 of 57 against Loyola Maryland. Can that really continue? Shooting numbers of that magnitude? I don't think so, in my opinion. Not against Butler, who I think going to be a pretty solid defensive team this year. Now, granted, the first game was against New Orleans, the Privateers. That's not saying much, but 53 points allowed, 21 of 51 shooting. They're still going to be, I think, a plus defensive team, Butler. I don't agree with this move up. I get it. Penn State's put up 90s the first two games, but those are not sustainable, all right? Those shooting numbers just cannot continue as far as I'm concerned for Penn State. And like I said, 90 points, but tempo-wise, they're 287 in the country, 69 possessions per game. They're not speeding it up. It's just that they've shot out of their minds, out of their skulls good so far, shot lights out. That's not going to continue anytime soon. So that's not going to continue indefinitely, I should say. So I don't agree with the total move. And if it goes higher, I might look under in this game. And I like Butler. Butler plus the points because I think finally Penn State's going to run into a defense that's going to provide a little bit of resistance. That plus some shooting regression for Penn State, I think, is on the way starting tonight. What do you think here, Connor?
I got to give a quick shout out to the chat. Justin, Jack, Matt Stoney, NJ Striker, Nunya, Jake Burns, Don Play, Star Child. Good to see you. My guy Tone, he likes Kent State -6. Banana and Grapes, the Fowlish Hound. Good to see you in here. Newt Sports says he's going to be at the game in Charleston. Eric Jones.
Oh, nice. Enjoy.
Yeah, ex-Cal. Colton, he likes your Florida bet. This game is interesting for me, Ian. I think this total has gone up a little too much as well. I kind of now looking under, both these teams haven't played anybody. I do like the higher for Butler. I think as they just needed more games here. It's just so early in the year. I want to see a little more of it. This opened 9.5. This is down to 5.5. I just didn't catch that 9.5 last night. I wish I jumped on it. So that's why in the end I'm off. Crazy too. Penn State, you talked about shooting it real wild, but the last year they were an under team. Butler kind of was an over team, which was weird. And Penn State's been really good at home, the last few years. I think they're like 12-1, 13-1, going back to last year. So yeah, I don't think they can continue shooting it that well either. I think the total is a little high. Well, I don't know. So early right now. Is there more points being in this game again, or we get a little tighten up defense, some missed shots, and it stays under? So this is one, in the end, just some leans I got to stay off.
Nothing wrong with that. Looks like Connor passing on this one here with Butler and Penn State. But yeah, I definitely think when you look at these teams right now, Penn State's not going to keep shooting like that. And I think this is definitely, on paper, this definitely sets up to be probably their biggest defensive test that they have had all season. We'll see how they fare against it. All right, next up, we've got Monmouth and Illinois. This is the last of our marquee games. So after this, it'll be Connor Mack is going to throw in some games that he likes that we haven't talked about yet. I will as well, and then we'll open it up for Q&A with the chat. Any games you want to throw at us, put them in the chat, and we will answer them. Monmouth, Illinois, we've got Illinois 28-point home favorites, 142. I laid it with Illinois. This wasn't even a thought to me. I didn't even think twice. Monmouth is totally rebuilding. They are in shambles right now. They cannot and they will not compete with anybody that is one of the better teams in college basketball, and that should include Illinois tonight. I mean, they're gutted. Their roster's gutted. They have no scoring. They have a hideous defense. I mean, they have just got nothing working right now. And for King Rice, who's had some nice Monmouth teams in years past, this is nothing like that. Complete rebuild job. This is going to be a rough year for him, and probably when they get into the Metro Atlantic. Now, maybe as the season goes on, they'll get better. They actually might be a team because they're going to be so bad and they're going to get their ass kicked so much in non-conference play to begin the season. Maybe when they get to the Metro Atlantic, they're going to be able to, dig in and play a little bit. Or no, they're not in the Metro Atlantic anymore. My bad. They're in Colonial now, CAA conference, and that's even worse because the Metro Atlantic was a dog shit conference for the most part all these years. Horse shit. That conference, but CAA is a little bit tougher. You got some decent teams there in that conference, so it's a tough transition here for King Rice's squad now going to CAA. So they may not be the bet on commodity maybe that I thought they would be as the season goes on, but they've been absolutely crushed. Seton Hall didn't even have a full fully healthy roster. They were shorthanded, and Seton Hall still beat Monmouth 79-52. Virginia just destroys them, doubles them up 89-42 in the last game. I mean, this is just an easy fade right now. Monmouth is dreadful. Illinois can win this one by 30 plus, in my opinion, just like Seton Hall. Well, Seton Hall won by 27, but Virginia won by 47 against them. And remember, Seton Hall won by 27 with a depleted roster and still beat Monmouth by 27. So lay it with the Illinois Fighting Illini. In fact, you might even be able to split it up first half and full game here. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I'm not involved here, but I'd lean Illinois. They've come out and kind of easy, cruise for them the first couple. Monmouth can't score. I don't know. They score in the 50s here. As long as they don't give up too much. Yeah, I kind of like the full game under, or even Monmouth's team total under. But I agree with you. I think they roll in this one.
There are 363 Division I college basketball teams this season. Do you know that in terms of points per game offensively, Monmouth is 361 out of 363? And defensively, points per game allowed, 345 out of 363. Field goal percentage defense, 336 out of 363. Field goal percentage offense, 351 out of 360. We're talking about bottom of the barrel statistics for Monmouth right now. They are, I think, one of the worst teams going right now. That's how bad it is, and their statistics bear it out. So this should be an Illinois romp, and hopefully it's a romp by 30 plus to get the spread taken care of. All right, that is the marquee games. Let's hand it over to our man, Conor Mack. Conor, any games that you want to touch on?
Yeah, just a couple here. Yep, shout out to MMA Locker Room. This is the game. George Washington, Hofstra. Let's touch on the total real quick on it. I like the over. I think I might do it smaller. There's tons of money on this under. This line hasn't moved really at 150.5. It kind of touched 151. Both these teams can score. We know that. George Washington beat Howard by 10 and just Virginia State pretty easily, 85-58. On the other side, Hofstra's look good. A couple of 83, 77, 78 wins. I see points. I think this gets over, but I think George Washington can hang a little bit with the 8 points in this one. I think this game's just too close. Hofstra's defense is not good enough. So not only I like the 8, I also lean this over 150. What do you like here?
Totally in agreement. This is actually one of the games I was going to mention that the total anyway was 150.5. I didn't bet the side, but I feel it is a few too many to lay with Hofstra. Do think Hofstra's a better team, but not ready to lay 8. I do like the over. So we're in agreement. All right. What else you got?
Yeah. The only one I really liked was this one. They've just been money to me. I'm going Stetson, South Florida here. South Florida, this team dead last scoring. Like you mentioned 363. They're right at the bottom here. Slowest pace too. Here's their 2 games. We're on both. 64-61 SEMO, 67-59. That's against Auburn. Get scored a little bit the last few years. Not only I lean Stetson here because South Florida can't score. When they can't score, why would you want to lay 8 points? But I like the under even better. I know Stetson kind of a higher scoring team, but that's not against the South Florida that's just going to slow it down, drag this out. It's just going to be a dogfight. It's going to be so slow. They'll keep it in the 60s. So I like the under 132, and I don't mind the +8 with Stetson. I think they could hang around in this one. What'd you like?
I not only don't mind Stetson, I bet Stetson +8 here in this game. Again, anytime you start to see this South Florida team, and it's been the same all these years. Doesn't matter the coach, doesn't matter the personnel and the players. They have not been able to put the biscuit in the basket consistently. And this team, game in and game out, is very capable of 5-10 minute scoring droughts. We have seen it on display from South Florida over the years. Yeah. So I agree. The under certainly makes sense to me. And Stetson plus the points, I think, which I do like. That would have been the games I mentioned. So that's it for Conor. In terms of the games that I like that we didn't get to, and by the way, now's the time, put those questions in the chat. Yeah. Jose will put the little blue star beside them so I know to read them and answer them here at the end of the show here. Let me just rhyme through. I think, you know what, we've gone through a lot of my card already, believe it or not. There's only, I think, a few more. I laid it with Drake against Wofford. I think Wofford's kind of retooling, rebuilding a little bit, and this Drake team looks like they're going to be very good once again, like they've been the last few years. in the Missouri Valley and just overall. So I laid the points with Drake in that game. I'm on the over in Northern Colorado and Baylor. Baylor is scoring a bunch right now. Now, obviously, we know they can be defensively capable, but you're going to get pace from Northern Colorado, from the Bears. So I do like that game over the total. The total's moved up a bit already, but I like it. I'm going to ride Herb Sendek again in the Santa Clara Bronx tonight. They just have gotten off to a nice start this year, Santa Clara. They are catching a healthy 7 points, 7.5 in some spots against Utah State. I think Santa Clara is a very live road dog there. I like them in that spot tonight. They're playing some good basketball. When you look at Utah State, they are a team that's, I'll be honest, they probably should have done better than they've done in the last couple of years. I know they did win and cover in their first 2 games, but, Santa Clara off to a real nice start. See if they can keep it going here against Utah State. And I think the key matchup here going into this game, it's going to be the fact that this Santa Clara team, in terms of defense against the 3, it's key against Utah State. Utah State is just a blistering 3-point shooting team. Santa Clara's defended the 3 very well, 22% allowed. You take away the 3 from Utah State, you're going to have some success. So I think Santa Clara could be live in that game. What else do we have here? I mentioned Illinois already. I'm going to mention a few overs here on the extra board, the added board. Cornell St. Francis, PA. I like the over 154 there. Cornell is one of the fastest paced teams in college basketball, up and down the floor, the Big Red machine offensively they are. I like over the total with them in St. Francis, Pennsylvania in that game. Coppin State, Navy, someone asked in the chat. I'm on the side, Coppin State. I think Coppin State's playing well. I like catching points with Coppin, not laying. And kudos to Connor Mack, who took an over with Navy against Princeton on one of our shows last week on the Net Profit show. I'm also taking an over tonight with Navy against Coppin State. Navy is showing you Princeton pushes pace. They didn't mind going up and down a bit more. You're going to see the same thing here with Ed DeChellis's Navy team. Solid enough offensively. They don't play fast, but when they got an opponent that wants to push it, like Coppin State will under Juan Dixon, I think you're going to see this team absolutely respond and be able to get more of a free-flowing brand of basketball in this game. So I like that over Navy, Coppin State, 138.5. And the only reason it's that low is because Navy plays slow. But Princeton got Navy into more of a higher scoring affair. I think Coppin State can kind of drag Navy into more of a higher scoring affair as well in that game. I'm on Belmont and Lipscomb over the total. I always bet Belmont versus Lipscomb games over the total. They seem to play each other every year, and I think you're going to see points in that game, much like you do most seasons. I'm on thinking Christmas, Holy Cross and Creighton over the total as well. In that game, it's already gone up to 144, 145, but I agree with that move. Creighton, I think, should be able to score at will against Holy Cross. Holy Cross plays above average pace, so we should see points in that game. And I'm just seeing if I think there's one more that I leave off here. Let me just see the big list of games here. No, I think I mentioned everything. I think I've hit everything. Yes. Oh, Utah Tech, Washington over as well. Washington's offense has been quite good under Hopkins. Utah Tech is I think top 30 tempo team in the country. Let me just double check that, but they play fast. Utah Tech, yes, indeed, 19th in the country tempo wise. Not the greatest defensive team. So at 142, I think Utah Tech and Washington goes over the total. So there you go, my card right there. Conor, last chance to mention anything from those games that I mentioned, or anything else that you like.
No, I think you nailed it. I already ripped through it. Someone put.
What about Navy Coppin? Navy Coppin State over. I'll ask you about that. Just because you cashed that Navy over last week, would you be interested in dabbling again?
I would. I wish it was a little bit lower, but I don't mind it at 138. I think Coppin can hang too in that one. Just 2. You could take the 3. I might just take a money line. We'll see if Navy can go in there and win. I think that's a fascinating game. I looked at that a bunch today.
Yeah, there we go. All right, good stuff. Let's hit the chat now. See what everybody's saying. Questions in terms of the other games. Galactic High, we'll start there. IU PUI. Nunya asked about the Coppin State Navy over, but we just hit that one. So Galactic High saying IU PUI, Chicago State under, and IU PUI first half under. Look, IU PUI is god-awful offensively. All right, just absolutely horrendous offensively. I would never endorse an over with this group right now, but we are talking very low. We're talking now. The odds makers know how putrid the offense is for
Both
IU,
these teams.
PUI, and really, Chicago State's not any better. Chicago's 264 in terms of offense in the country, and IU, PUI. You talk about there's 363 teams right now. D1 college hoops. IU, PUI offensive efficiency 355. That's where they're at. So this is a nails on a chalkboard offense right now with the Jaguars of Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, which I always have to like saying every now and then to remind myself just what the fuck IUPUI actually stands for. But there we go. I lean under, but it's very low. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah. Both those teams are just ugly. It's so low. Maybe they're so bad, but both these teams can't hit open shots. Can they do it? Man, that's so bad. I don't even want to watch that game. Look at it.
There we go. All right. Good question, though. That's an ugly game. And that's the great thing about this show. We'll talk any game as long as we can, someone wants to bring it up. Nunya asking about any opinion on Sac State and Denver here tonight in the college basketball ranks. The Denver Pioneers, 2-0 start, by the way, for the Pioneers. Pretty solid starting to the year for them. But again, Idaho in their first game, they didn't cover, and then they played Colorado College after that. So, this can be a little bit more of a challenge. Sacramento State gets beaten up by UCLA in their opener, but they bounce back. They beat UC San Diego, the Tritons, in their last game, 65-55. Outright win as road underdogs. I don't know. To me, I'd lean Sacramento State, honestly. I think this is actually going to be a pretty solid Big Sky team this year. The money's already come in on them. Kind of sensing what I do, that I think Denver might have a hard time scoring a little bit more here in this game tonight. When you look at Sacramento State, I think they're going to make it a lot tougher on them. Offensively, Sacramento State's hurting a little bit, but I think at the defensive end, they're going to be able to keep Denver in check a little bit more than, say, the first two opponents were. So I think that's critical when you look at this matchup. And keep in mind, too, and this is something to always focus on, you want to be laying points with a team that's shooting at 59.8% from the free throw line. That's 319th in the country. Denver at the free throw line. That worries me when I'm laying points.
Yeah, you know what I like? This has come down. I like the under because I think Sac State can just make this ugly. And Denver not shooting well, like you mentioned. So I lean under there. Not a ton of value now at 131.5.
Not a game I bet, but I'd throw out the lean. And Sacramento State is extremely slow on offense, 351 in tempo in college basketball. Denver's actually gotten a little quicker the last year or two, but they're still only like middle of the pack in terms of tempo. And offensively, it comes and goes. So I don't mind the underlook there either as well. And yes, the big man there for Sacramento State is a pretty good player. We'll see if he can keep going as well for them in this game tonight. Let me see what else we've got here in the chat comments. Let's see. Norfolk State plus 21 from our guy Jake Burns in the chat. Norfolk State taking on UCLA. UCLA is always hit or miss in these. They did cover against Sacramento State, but they're never a team I'm rushing to lay points with. What's funny about these UCLA games though against the weaker competition is they seem to lack a little defensive intensity at times. You look at the game against Long Beach State, and they scored at will, but the defense wasn't nearly as good. Long Beach State was able to get some shots, hang around in that one. They also pushed the pace against UCLA in that game. And when you look at the way that Norfolk State plays, this is a team that wants to slow it down. They're 246th in the country, but they are pretty efficient offensively, 58th. They're horrible defensively and probably not going to be that able to slow down anything UCLA wants to do. You should expect UCLA to get their share of points here big time in this game. And let's be honest, they've still got, a very solid team overall. They lost a couple pieces from last year, but they've still got Tiger Campbell. You've still got Jaime Jaquez. These are guys that have been here now for a very long time here with Mick Cronin at UCLA. So I actually have a small lean to the over with Norfolk State, UCLA, but I didn't touch the side.
Yeah, they might get this cover. I want nothing to do with it, but I think you might be right. I think UCLA can probably get right in the low 80s, and Norfolk just get in the 60s, so that might just get this game over.
Yeah, I'm not ready to lay Washington minus 17. Jake Burns asking about that. So I would lean Utah Tech, but like I said, I prefer the over in that game. XCal 360, North Carolina Central, plus 11.5 in their game tonight as they are on the board against Liberty. Liberty's one of those teams. I'd take points with Liberty. I don't usually lay big points with Liberty. Again, Richie McKay is a great coach, great job, great defensive team. They're going to be a great defensive team again this year, but they slow the pace down. You're not going to get as many possessions. And to be honest with you, talk about coaches that I like in college basketball. I know it's the MEAC, and it doesn't get a lot of focus, but Lavelle Moton's been here forever. And he's actually, you know what, had this team relatively consistent most seasons. There is definitely a little bit of a athletic advantage for teams when they play MEAC teams, but not as much when you're talking Liberty from their conference as opposed to say and a Big Ten team or an SEC team or an ACC team. I mean, the Atlantic Sun and the MEAC are a little bit closer together in terms of quality of athlete, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, I don't hate that look, honestly. NC Central plus points. The under probably is a good look there too.
Yeah, that's one I just am off. Liberty is better, but I don't want to lay that number with them as well. But I'm not running to back Central either, so I was off.
All right. And Air Force from Arthur Rambert here tonight, or Rambert if you're French, but I think it's Rambert. What about Air Force tonight in this one? I'll tell you what, Air Force has been all over the map here from their first two games because I took them in the first game of their season, and it was kind of a bad performance from them. They're playing Texas A&M Commerce tonight. When I look at Air Force here, when they've got their ball movement going, like they beat Delaware 75-71 on Friday, I was very impressed with their offensive execution. I'm like, where the fuck was that against Bowling Green when I took you? And you only scored 58 points against a Bowling Green team that was horrendous on the defensive end last year. So Air Force is a little bit sketchy and erratic for my liking. You look at Texas A&M Commerce here going into this game. They play fast. It's kind of a pace war. Air Force doesn't want to play fast, and they're a horrendous defensive team. Texas A&M Commerce, 334 in the country. So you got Air Force wanting to slow it down, play in the half court. Commerce wanting to speed it up. Maybe an Air Force team total over because their offense should work. You just hope that they don't slow it down enough to the point where they don't get enough possessions to get up and over their team total. But that's probably the way I'd look at it maybe. If you can find a team total on Air Force here, maybe an overlook. But that's about it.
Yeah, I know Commerce just is so bad. I can't take, if you got the 133.5 when this opened, because Air Force, I know that game got over, but I think as the year goes on, you'll see this team, against the better teams can't score and they're not going to. It's just down to 129. I can't take it. And I'm not laying, even against Commerce. I'm not laying 10.5 with Air Force.
I don't blame you for that whatsoever. Either going in that direction. Lafayette and St. Joe's. Someone asking Jake Burns about St. Joe's minus 10 in this game. Now, look, St. Joe, I'll tell you what, I don't know how good St. Joe is going to be this year. This has always been a team that, trying to find their way in the Atlantic 10, and it hasn't always been easy sledding for them by any stretch of the imagination. You look at their head coach here, Billy Lang. He's been trying to get them better, but they at least faced obviously a very tough first game. Maybe that has them well prepared for what's to come here against Lafayette, the Leopards, who are not a very good defensive team, 320th in the country in terms of the defensive end of the basketball court. This should be a game where, look, St. Joe's strength has always been their offense. It got shut down against Houston, but not playing Houston defensively anymore. Lafayette lost to St. John's 83-68 on Saturday. They lost 67-54 as 26.5-point dogs against Miami. They did cover, though, both of those games. So to me, this is a tricky game. It's a total pass for me. I think St. Joe's, after playing Houston, sometimes there's that theory that you play an elite team like that, and it really gets you going and gets you more ready for what's to come. And certainly that should benefit St. Joe's when you play a team like Houston. But at the same time, that defense is still a little sketchy to the point where I don't want to lay 10. And you got to admit, Lafayette, covered against two power conference teams, St. John's and Miami, to begin the season, losing by 15 or less in both. So, if you're covering against those two teams, you can probably hang inside the number against a team like St. Joe's too. So conflicting arguments for me with that game.
Yeah, just too big of a number. I don't know what we're going to get with St. Joe's. Like you talked about the rest of the year. How often it's played, going back, I thought this is like they were 14 and a half, 15. You'd be on them, not getting a bargain here at 10. But I don't know. I think they maybe could hang around there.
Yeah, no question about that. It's an interesting game here. Last question here from Nunya, the last one that I see that we haven't gotten to yet. Colorado State, and in that game, let me just see. Colorado State. Yeah, Colorado State, I loved that team last year. You know that. And they were a moneymaker for me. They're playing Weber State tonight. They're laying 8 in that game against Weber. Now, the problem for Colorado State is I don't think they're as good this year necessarily. I think that's probably going to be a little bit of a challenge for them. I know Weber State has taken money so far in this game and all opened double-digit dogs. Now they're down to 8 in this one. But I like Nico Medved. I like him as a coach. He's got some parts to replace from last year's team. You look at the way they've started this year. They're very balanced, though, offensively, defensively, pretty solid. The key is, Isaiah Stevens, can he, the senior, and John Tonye, can these two guys really become the bulk scorers for Colorado State and step into those main starring roles this year? That's going to end up being the question. But I understand why people are betting Weber, but I have an affinity for Colorado State and Medved and the job he's done. And I'm always higher than the market on Colorado State. So for that reason, I'm off the game.
Yeah, me too. I need more points with Weaver, and I got to watch Colorado State a little bit more this year. They haven't scored it well these first few games, and this total has just gone down a tad bit, but all on the under. So, yeah, I'll wait and see with them. Maybe back to the under here, 139, but I got to see him more.
Oh, shit. You know what? The Gas Report talking about the Georgia game. That was actually one of the games I wanted to talk about in my picks segment of the show, and I forgot it. I'm on Miami O. It's fade Mike White. You know it. My best bet on the show on Friday was Wake Forest, -7 against Georgia. And look, that game was closer than it really was. I mean, Wake Forest kind of fell asleep in the second. They were up by like 22 at halftime. They ended up winning by 10. But they were in control, complete control of Georgia. Georgia's a fade for me. They're not good. They were horrible last year. They sent Tom Crean packing. It was a disastrous era for Georgia basketball with him. I don't think they upgraded the coach, honestly. I don't think Mike White's a great coach, honestly. I'm just saying it. Florida underachieved under his watch. I don't know he's going to be the guy to turn Georgia around. They're already, I believe, 0-2 ATS this year. They failed to cover their first game against Western Carolina. And then, of course, they lost to Wake Forest and were pretty much blown out for much of that game. So I like Miami O. I lean under in that game because, they're trying to slow it down. They're trying to go from the Tom Crean full court ways to the slow it down half court ways under Mike White. But the problem is that total opened 147.5. It's 140.5 now. So if you like the over Gas Report, you're getting the best of the number. You're at least not getting the butt end of the number like you would if you like the under, but you like the over, and at least you're getting the best of it. You're getting 7 points the better of it because it opened 147.5. It's 140.5. So definitely, I think I would look toward the over now at the number. But I'm on Miami O plus the points. It's just fade Georgia right now. And yes, they're going to miss David Roddy. Nunya, excellent. I was trying to remember his name. Yeah, David Roddy. That's the guy they're going to miss for Colorado State. That's why I'm a little concerned about backing them early in the year. But yeah, Miami O plus the points for me there against Georgia.
You know what? I'd lean that way. Miami, Ohio, though, is not very good either.
No.
But I don't think Georgia should be laying 12. This seems like this should have been like an 8, And yeah, I like the under that you just talked about. It's trash way down. Even Heritage, you get 139.5 if you have that book. So I'm off this game completely, but I wish you luck.
All right, there we go. That is great stuff, guys. Thanks for the questions. We appreciate it. We'll try to always hit them up at the end of every show, and we have reached the end of the show. We got best bets from Conor and I coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, and manscaped.com. Get 20% off your purchase of anything on the site with promo code PubSports. And make sure you're a Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel member. It's only $4.99 a month. It's like 18 cents a day. You get all kinds of perks, incentives, and there'll be more of those added to the menu as time goes on. So Pub Members Club today. There it is. Hit that join button. $4.99 a month. That's all it takes. So make sure you sign up for that. Man, this now, I get a little break now following this show, and then I'm back at it with Jimmy the Bag for the NFL Live Bet stream on Monday Night Football tonight with the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'll be back at 8 p.m. Eastern. I do the first half on that show, so I'll be sticking around for the first half of that game. Join me and Jimmy and crew. I think Sharpie might be on. He's been on the last couple of Mondays with us, so looking forward to that on the bet stream tonight. And Connor, I will join the Thursday night stream at some point. I promise. Thursday Night Football. I will get on there one of these Thursdays before the end of the season, but we'll eventually get there. I'm going to pick a game that's really good. I think there's a Seattle-San Francisco game in a couple weeks that's really good. I think that's the one I'm going to hop in.
Hey, those Thursday nights can be, not the greatest games, but we make it work. We're trying to make it work.
With a little Ian commentary, it'll make it a little better. Yeah, absolutely. A bad Thursday night football game. All right. Well, you know what we hope is not bad, Connor Mack, our best bet. Let's hit it. Connor, what do you like for best bet?
Yeah, South Florida, Stetson, I'm on the under 132.5. I don't mind Stetson, the 8. I might keep that bet smaller. Portland, Kent State, over 151.5. I think we see a ton of points there. And George Washington Hofstra, taking the 8 with George Washington. I'm not loving all this under money on this game, so I'll keep it lighter. But I think this game can get over the 150 as well. So that's it.
There you go. All right, a couple of best bets, a handful there, a little smorgasbord of best bets.
Smorgasbord of bets there.
The College Basketball Net Profit Show. My best bet is going to be, I'm going to go Richmond and Charleston over 151.5. It looks like it's the best number out there right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, 2 Charleston overs, as easy as it gets. And this team is not being accounted for properly with their totals, in my opinion. You actually could get as low as 148.5 with this total. I think there's still plenty of value now. Richmond and Charleston over 151.5 for my best bet for this Monday edition of the Net Profit College Basketball Show. That's a wrap. Great stuff. Great show again.
Hit the like button.
Hit that like button.
Please.
Exactly. We appreciate it. 106 live viewers. Hit the like button. I will not be on the show tomorrow or Wednesday, but don't you dare miss the show. It's still on 5 p.m. tomorrow and Wednesday. Connor Mack and Dabby Cab stepping in to break down the college basketball card. And then I'll be back for Thursday and Friday with Connor Mack here on the College Basketball Net Profit Show. Connor Mack, final words before we say goodbye.
Just shout out to the chat. As I always say, the best goddamn chat in the goddamn game, hands down. Especially other ones that keep it cool in here. We always got some. Ron Murray, what's up, my man? Good to see you. Cal Nunya, everyone in your Canes Nation, good to see you in here. Gas Report, everyone else. Jake, I hate to all, but I appreciate you. Thanks for having me, and I will see you tomorrow. Later.
There we go. Great stuff. That is another edition of College Basketball Net Profit. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And join Dabby and Connor Mack tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.